Maplewood was a picturesque town, nestled among rolling hills and dense woodlands. Its cobblestone streets and quaint homes gave it a timeless charm, but what truly made it special was the tight-knit community of people who called it home. Among them was Elizabeth Lizzie Harper, a woman whose faith and kindness were as steadfast as the church bell that rang every Sunday morning. Lizzie was a devoted wife to Daniel, a firefighter, and a loving mother to their two children, Grace and Ethan. Their modest home sat on the edge of town, surrounded by blooming wildflowers and shaded by an ancient oak tree. It was a haven, filled with laughter, prayer, and love. But as Lizzie often reminded herself, faith is not meant to shield us from life's trials, but to carry us through them. One crisp autumn evening, Daniel's fire department pager buzzed as the family gathered for dinner. An emergency call had come through. There was a massive fire at the old textile mill, an abandoned structure known for its precarious state. "Be careful," Lizzie said, concern flickering in her eyes as Daniel grabbed his gear. Daniel leaned in and kissed her forehead. "Always. I'll be home soon." Lizzie watched him leave, her heart heavy. She knelt in prayer, whispering for his safety, her Bible open beside her. Hours passed with no word. The sound of sirens faintly echoed in the distance, and Lizzie's unease grew. Suddenly, a loud knock startled her. Two firefighters stood on the porch, their faces solemn. "There was an explosion at the mill," one said gently. "Daniel saved 3 workers who were trapped, but he's been severely injured." Daniel was rushed to the hospital with burns covering much of his body. His condition was critical, and doctors warned Lizzie of the long and grueling recovery ahead. Lizzie's world seemed to crumble, but she held tightly to her faith. The medical bills began to pile up, and Daniel's firefighter income ceased. Lizzie's part-time work at the church was nowhere near enough to cover their mounting expenses. Her once firm foundation felt shaky, but Lizzie clung to the promise of Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him." Grace and Ethan, too young to fully grasp the gravity of the situation, sensed their mother's worry. They watched as she prayed late into the night, her hands trembling but her heart steadfast. Lizzie began to take action. She turned her love of baking into a small business, selling bread, pies, and cookies at the local farmer's market. She even learned to sew and started mending clothes for neighbors. The work was exhausting, but Lizzie found solace in knowing she was doing everything she could. One day, Grace and Ethan surprised her with a jar filled with coins and crumpled bills. "It's for Daddy," Grace said proudly. Lizzie's eyes filled with tears. "Where did you get this?" "We've been saving our allowance," Ethan said, his voice small but determined. Lizzie hugged them tightly. In their innocence, her children reflected the very faith she was struggling to hold on to. Word of Lizzie's resilience began to spread throughout Maplewood. The pastor organized a fundraiser to help cover the family's expenses, and the townspeople rallied to donate meals, supplies, and even their time. At the fire department, Daniel's colleagues decided to honor his bravery by setting up a scholarship fund in his name. "Your faith has inspired us all, Lizzie," the pastor told her during a Sunday service. "God's light is shining through you." Lizzie smiled through her tears. "It's not me," she said. "It's him." Daniel's recovery was slow and arduous. Physical therapy sessions were grueling, and there were moments when his spirits dipped. But Lizzie remained at his side, encouraging him with prayer and scripture. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Daniel squeezed her hand. "I've been through the fire," he said, his voice hoarse. "But I'm still here. God's not done with me yet." His words sparked a new sense of purpose. Daniel began sharing his story of survival and faith with others, speaking at churches and community events. Although Daniel could no longer fight fires, he found a new calling as a fire safety instructor. He poured his heart into educating others, using his experience to save lives differently. Grace and Ethan, inspired by their parents' strength, grew into compassionate and driven young adults. Grace pursued a career in nursing, while Ethan followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a firefighter with a passion for service. Years later, as Lizzie and Daniel sat on their porch, surrounded by their grown children and grandchildren, they reflected on the journey that had shaped their lives. "We thought the fire would destroy us," Daniel said, "but it refined us instead." Lizzie nodded, her heart full. Faith isn't about avoiding the flames. It's about trusting God to walk with us through them. Trials may test us, but they also strengthen us, like gold purified in fire. Faith is not passive. It is active, requiring trust, resilience, and courage. God often works through others to remind us we're never alone in our struggles. Even in the darkest moments, hope and love can shine through, lighting the way forward. Faith, through the fire, is a powerful reminder that no matter how fierce the flames are, faith can guide us to a place of healing, purpose, and triumph. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe, like, and share.